always in my classes say, these are the $500 seats right up front. You guys are sitting in the gallery. No, I mean, they're gratis. Today they're gratis.
If there's an attack, they're gonna get away first.
That's an Italian, truth.
I'm in the middle.
Hey, come on, this is all live now, like it's live streaming. I've got it on the Mevo here. So, hey, let's open up in a word of prayer and we'll have a great time today. Lord, thank you. Wow. Thank you for this conference and all that it will be. It's entitled to be. And you saw this from eternity past. So we have this expectation of what you would do in all of our lives, and we thank you. We thank you for it. In Jesus Christ's precious name we pray. Amen. Okay, I wanted to just introduce Nick. Nick is a good friend of mine, and he's here. Our paths crossed in ministry, and he's got a great vision for Charm City, the city, inner city. And so he found out what was going on down here. I said, well, come and see. So y'all just gang, roll up on him real well. You're going to be able to stay all day? Probably, okay. Well, we're going to make sure of that. That's okay. Well, let me just have you consider, in looking at like our gathering here, I wanted to talk about two things. Let's turn in our Bibles to 1 Timothy chapter 6 and maybe consider some things. Really, the breakfast with the pastors this morning on leadership versus management, man, that was like spot on. That was a bullseye. And it really provoked us to think about how we think about our ministry. And so maybe you're not an overseeing. How many overseeing pastors here, please? Thank you. Got a local assembly. Okay, gather. Okay. Yep. That might change what I'm going to talk about today. Could, but not necessarily. The idea of how, and our theme, not fainting. We faint not, but we do. Okay, we do. And one of the things that we said in some context or someplace, if you haven't quit following God, then your ministry is a little too shallow. Yeah. Yeah, if you haven't gotten to the place where, you become very desperate for your next spiritual breath because of exhaustion or, like there's so much going on personally behind the scenes, and then you go forth, and so I'm looking out and I'm thinking, like Pastor Moore has been in the ministry forever. It's very good. And I just thank God for your consistency and your steadfastness. You should probably be doing this workshop, but the idea of persistence and continuance, it's a key thing, because the Word of God says that the righteous man falls, what? 7 times. And then what happens? Gets back up. He gets back up. Now, that message in Christendom is radical. That's a radical message. You know how we've heard people say, you preach so much grace, you're going to give people a license to go out and sin. I say, they don't need a license to do that. They got a nature that's going to do that. And so I'm not managing people's lives in terms of their sin performance or the lack of sin. But what we want to do is is invest and pour into those who are with us in our sphere of influence for the purpose that they would continue, Now, here in 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 6, and actually we're going to want to take a look at verse 7 as well. But godliness, it says, with contentment is great gain. Godliness with contentment is an amazing advantage. I'm not gaining something. The King James there, the word actually there means to have an upper hand, to have an advantage. And I was asked the question, and I want to put this out. In fact, maybe we can discuss this, on your table. In fact, we're going to discuss it on our table. What is do I know how to distinguish between contentment and complacency? Contentment over here, complacency over here. Do they look alike? Are they alike? Go ahead and discuss that with someone at your table, and we'll come back to that. Contentment versus complacency. And for those of you that are on the digital, okay, that's for you to discuss, and we'll come back and have a walk around microphone.
And I think complacency is standing in one place.
In contentment, we're satisfied.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna come around with the microphone and get, can you help me with this and walk it around?
Yeah.
Yeah, so who wants to share from their table and some thoughts on this?
Who'll be first? I'll be first. I forget what I was just.
That's true.
I was telling the guys in festival I was speaking, I was thinking of, I'd rather eat hot or cold or out, if you lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth. And, I was saying, problems like these kind of arise in a life when we question ourselves in terms of direction or, you know, our involvement with the Spirit of God. When, I think when we're not like waiting on God. But when God comes down and we enter the anointing, first thing I noticed about this ministry, I didn't know anything about the Bible. To me, it was David killed a giant, Jesus went up in the sky. It's a Catholic, there's 3 or 4 things that stick out. But when the anointing comes down, the anointing actually frightened me a little. Because, before I came to Christ, I was a happy little criminal. And I remember distinctly the time around Woodstock when everyone was taking LSD.
I'm gonna
When you take LSD,
announce you, and then we're gonna kind of have a discussion on
10 people
the landscape of
it's kind of freaky.
the digital
So Dr.
world.
Steve
Sure.
grabbed that mic and
I can share some stats. So I'll just roll with it. Yeah. I know you have some stats. Yeah. Mr. Butch is gonna be half an hour.
That was unmistakable when you first experienced anointing, because the divine essence is invading your space. And I think when God is leading us, we feel sure about everything, don't we? But when he stops and he backs off a bit, we know something has changed. And we are in a place now where we want discovery. And we're in the Deuteronomy 29 place. The secret things belong to God, but those things revealed belong to his children. And that's what I love about this ministry. We're not charismatic in that sense, but we are always learning again how to wait upon God, which we do not like. I'm an impatient person, so waiting on God is agonizing for me in a way. But with a cup of coffee and the scriptures, just studying along, saying God's going to break through. I don't know what hour or what day. And it's great to be with you guys, like whenever we can get together, because it's a reminder of who is the head. It's Christ is our head. And when we experience that life of the divine essence, it says in Corinthians, we're changed into what he shows us by the same Spirit that showed it to us. And that's what I need. That's what delivers me from this phenomenal environment.
Wow, that's good. Good word. Who else? Thank you. You're volunteering him?
So Q said,
There you go. That's good. That's right.
that's very true.
She did.
So complacency and contentment. And knowing you're in a situation that you may not like, and you're either in God's will or you're surrendering yourself to the situation for, whatever motivations you've got in your flesh. That's complacency is carnal, contentment is spiritual. Knowing who is in control in the situation that appears to be totally out of control or freaks you out. Oh my gosh, I didn't take LSD again. That's what it feels like. Just to continue a theme.
Well, I articulated that really well.
Got away with words, Kim, you really do.
I think that complacency is something that we can all fall into. And it's a carnal situation. And we leave ourselves open to sneaky demonic attack to make ourselves, we might even think we're okay and we assure ourselves. But we're living in sin maybe not even recognizing it. Where contentment, that's content, what was that?
Yeah, that's
Complacency
right.
and contentment.
That's right.
Godly contentment is great gain. When you're content, you're relaxed in the Lord, trusting in Him. You have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and you're, in a sense, prepared, a spiritual way that you can allow God to lead you. And when demonic attacks occur or circumstances come upon you, you can trust in God because you have spiritual contentment. Praise
Ooh, wisdom.
Awesome.
Just we'll get the order here.
As we had the discussion, there was two parts that stuck out. Pastor Chris said a constant movement, a movement of some sort, and Steve said purpose. And both of them coincide because contentment or complacency, you're still moving a direction. It's in what direction are you moving in? Well, contentment, I'm thinking of Stephen and Acts 7. Throughout the whole time proclaiming the saints of old and the gospel, he knew the direction he was going to go. He knew it was going to end up in death, and he was content. Versus Judas or whatever that still went in the direction of what he wanted to do with deceitfulness, but still having a thought of self. So one was unto God and one was unto self and flesh. So when we look at those two, throughout that journey, if our focus is on God, then what goes along with it, the thoughts go along with it, it's going to be beneficial and you're going to be content in that. Paul going to jail, each people in the Bible, you saw when content came in because Christ was in it. But as you go out through the Bible with complacency, you see when man just puts his own and, well, I'm going to do it my way, Samson, I'm going to do it my way. So those are the two parts that kind of stick out.
Wow.
Yeah, we were also just saying how complacency is like you stalled out.
Stalled. Wow.
And if there's aimlessness or no purpose, really, we're no longer reaching for God or walking in faith. And it's very uncomfortable in the sense of when you're in your natural, you can just be comfortable where you are. But contentment is amazing because you're moving. I love what was said, there's a relaxation, there's a faith, expectation. And it's like an engine. You're on all cylinders. You're just trucking along. Or complacency, you're just kind of like you're circular and or stalled out.
Wow. Wow. It's pretty simple. The word contentment. Let me turn on this other microphone. And I love words that contain words. Okay. And so contentment has content. Complacency is empty. Complacency is seeking something that it doesn't have, but it doesn't have the energy to pursue it. And so there's a great measure of complaining that goes along with a person that is complacent. Why don't you clean your room? Well, I don't want to do it. I'm not motivated to do that. But motivation, I think, is critical in what we're talking about, and the vision. So it's interesting. Jeremiah 48 and verse 11, and it speaks of Moab being at ease from his youth. Think of this. Being at ease from his youth. And then picture the rich young ruler. Okay. The rich young ruler had all three of the achievements that the world, magnifies. He had youth, he had, financial means, and he had influence. Okay. And yet he said, like, I lack something, and he, he gets before Jesus Christ And the big question is like, what kind of decision is he going to make, having all that he has, and he's complacent. He's stayed. He's going to be protective. And the other characteristic of complacency is that it's willing to protect what little it has rather than to invest to get more. It's like having a handful of seed. Okay. Now I can grind that seed up and make a biscuit and eat tonight. Okay. Or I can sow it and then feed thousands. And it's the idea of that motivation. But so Moab has been at ease from his youth, and he has settled on his lees. Okay, he is settled on his lees, and this is a picture of a person who, in their own estimation, they are satisfied. In their own estimation, they are satisfied. And we get this language. See, it's so great when you go out soul winning, you hear what people say about how they think about themselves. Like we'll ask an individual and we'll say, is there anything that we could pray, for you or anyone that you know that we could pray for? And you see this kind of quizzical calculation going on on their faces, and they're kind of like, well, no, I'm good. I'm good. And you're thinking like, nobody's home, it's like, uh, but that's a very dangerous place, isn't it? That's a very dangerous, because you're not able to receive. And one of the critical things, and as we kind of get along in ministry or we get along in age, one of the things that really becomes more apparent to us is the absolute necessity of receiving something fresh from Jesus Christ every day and learning how to live that way, learning how to live, with an expectation. Now, a lot of times people become complacent because they are self-conscious. They put a limitation so they don't have an expectation beyond themselves. They put a limitation on what they think that they can do or what they think their ministry, what God's calling would be all about. And this is why I think the body of Christ is so important, because iron sharpens iron. I get around and I'm hearing things of what God is doing in your life. Now that could evoke one or two reactions. One, either like, hey man, that's amazing, that's great, that's fantastic. But the other reaction is like, why is God blessing them and not me? Now you could say, well, why you got a negative attitude like that? Well, because I'm stuck. I'm stuck. And in that stickiness, I get very, very complacent, and it's hard to move. Well, one of the things that we wanted to touch on, and we're going to jump into this. I've asked Pastor Jason to kind of come in alongside of today, because one of the things that we see that has happened and related to where we are, 21st century, March of 2021, COVID did something, okay? COVID did something. Did you ever think of, why do they call it COVID-19? Because that's the date. That date, and it'll go down in history like something pivotal happened. And we have yet to see the implications and the ramifications and the fallout of all of that. But if people are thinking that they're going to go back to what they had before, okay? I mean, and first it was, flatten the curve, then it was, reduce the hospitalizations, then it was, and the narrative goes on and on and on and on. And that's not going to change, okay? But I don't want to live in a, cancer or a cancerous culture that is canceling anything and everything. How many here you got your church service online? If you're an overseeing pastor, you got your church service. Good. God bless you. Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. And you kind of think, you know what? This thing has kind of shoved the digital, reality on a lot of ministries. And some ministries, unfortunately, didn't make that transition. And in their minds, they're thinking maybe if we could get back to, we'll give, you get the jab, then you get the second jab, and then, maybe people will come out. But you know what? I have people in my family, and that's what they said to me. They said, "We'll come and visit the grandkids when we get the jab." They got the jab. We said, "We'll come and visit the grandchildren when we get the second jab." They got the second jab. Fear, fear. Okay. All right. So here's where we are. Got a COVID consequence, and this is where we are. Okay, this is where we are. Pro or con, however you want to think about it. The digital world is a wasteland. Now I'm kind of a latecomer because I didn't do Facebook. I didn't do those kind of things. The only thing that we have a Facebook presence, but it's not my account, it's the ministry's account. And all that we're doing is we're putting out the message, the finished work message. And the reason is because it's the people are not hearing that. Not only just not hearing it maybe in churches, but certainly they're not hearing it there. Okay. Now, Pastor Moore is going to share a couple of fascinating stats and details on what does that look like in terms of maybe we would consider a mission field. Yeah.
You want to stand right here?
No, get in front of the camera there. Thank you, sir.
Oh, it's great to be with you, mighty men and women.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, recently did a Missions Monday on the Digital Frontier, and we got a lot of excellent feedback. And I know at Greater Grace, our media has grown by 50% this year, which is a huge number. And I have a couple of stats, but just in light of what we're hearing, I think as grace-oriented believers, we have creativity. And that's a big word. I think in complacency, you lose your creativity. But God has called us to create, and we've been taught that ultimately that's from the Spirit. So just to think about some new tools is really kind of exciting. And just think about this: 1 million. This is in one. Let me just read this. In 1 minute, 1 million people log on to Facebook. In 1 minute, 3.8 million searches on Google. In 1 minute, 4.5 million videos are viewed on YouTube. In 1 minute, 350,000 people are scrolling through Instagram. Isn't that crazy? These numbers are staggering. So there's like 4 billion people on the internet, 3 billion on social media. So these numbers are astronomical. We're looking to reach the one, obviously. Mm-hmm. So in our church here, and personally, Pastor Wright and I talk often about just different ways to get the finished work message, because so many are just they're oppressed by the fear. They're this fear of the oppressor, like we heard recently in Isaiah 51. They're afraid of what could happen or would happen, but maybe doesn't happen. So our message becomes even more precious. So one thing we're doing, just maybe practically, we have Pastor Schaller does an amazing devotional. How many love his devotionals? I love it. One time I sing to my son loves it.
Okay.
But that is a very powerful. that's a very powerful ministry, because what you're doing, and maybe there's the idea of, maybe there's a negative idea about internet, or maybe there's like, how can I do this? But actually, with our message, it's like a radioactive seed. It's small but mighty. The new big is small, as they say. So even just in this digital footprint, having a finished work message, maybe it's a podcast. How many do podcasts here? How many do blogs? Okay, good. How many are on the internet? Okay.
How many are here?
Oh, that's good.
Oh boy.
Just shut me down anytime.
No, that's. I think we wanted to kind of do a dialogue, and because we had talked about this, but I love the idea. So Pastor Schaller, I mean, and he's no technocrat. Okay, that's how you want to class. But he just gets himself in front of a camera and shares this message. He shares his life. Um, and the simplicity of that is you can't measure it. How many people, you don't even go there. How many people are listening to your podcast? How many, you don't even, it's the one that hears, ties in, locks and loads, and their life has changed. It happens. It definitely happens. Um, did I bring that? I hope I did. Um, yes, I did. What is this? Come on now. No, no. See, I wasn't going there. Okay, yeah. Guess what? What is this? Spiritual authority over self condemnation. Noontime class, July 15th, 1999. Any questions? I mean, Pastor Stevens built his vision and his ministry through these. Africa opened because somebody, sent some cassette tapes over there. Okay. How many remember listening to Grace Hour on shortwave radio? Oh yeah. You know, it was the dance. It was the dance to get the signal. Like you had to show, and turn this way. No, don't turn that way. Turn this way. That was the technology. The Apostle Paul used the technology of his day. I don't know. He just had it that he was going to write to the Church of Rome, but he kind of thought, I'm going to put it on vellum, which is much more durable. Yeah, because it's got to last. It's got to last. So, kind of what we're saying, and I could be stuck in a complacent place because I don't think that I can do that, or I'm not technically, proficient. What is this?
A dumb phone.
I'll take the first part, but it's not a phone. It's not a phone. It exactly, yeah, in your pocket with a stinking camera on it. Okay? And I think that what we've discovered is like we couldn't talk like this 7 or 9 or 10 years ago, like being online, being visible to an unseen audience. The cost, the ramp up, the equipment, the staff, all of that is prohibitive. But it's not. If you got a phone, got the internet. You set that puppy up on, your breakfast table or wherever you want to go and wherever you are. And then this is the other thing that we wanted to consider. And it's true. I mean, God, who's he speaking to? I'm looking at him. The people in this room, and he's not selective, but we are the body of Christ. And if you are hearing from a living Christ, if you are hearing fresh something from God based on your communion and your fellowship with Him, rest assured it's too big just for you. It is. You don't have to be a pastor, but what you're hearing has import and has impact. If it's impacted you, it'll impact others. And I kind of just want to, in a way, kind of free us up and have us to consider that and by the way, we're not talking either or. It's both and. This is not a replacement for, in-person service or in-person fellowship. But you know what? I'm going to get with you guys. I mean, some of you, and we're just going to sit down and we're going to, talk, have some fellowship, and have that go and be a blessing to others. Okay. And it could be very informal, very relaxed. But Pastor uh, Moore has you've got a blog and he's also written some books. How many have ever read any of his books? Okay, that's good. Yeah, he's got something to say, something I want to hear. I know you don't think that, but that's your humility there.
Well, I just say I love that statement because with inreach or pastoral care, when new people come to our church, I would say anyone under the age of 40 has looked at our website. I'd say it's almost 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10. And not to make it about demographics and or, well, it is about demographics in one sense, but we're just, there's something to say, there's something to show, and because of the comfortability of people in computers, they will hide behind their technology oftentimes. And when they hear a message, I think of one Bible school student, Daniel Flores, I don't know Daniel. He came over from California, and how did he find us? He found us on Google.
Yeah.
He heard the message. He's like, I'm not hearing this message where I'm at. And he sacrificed and came. And I think, we've had students from Montana and other places. I think like that message, corporate Pentecost, that we all know with churches throughout the United States, I really believe this is part of it, where people are being, connected to the life of the message. I think too, because so many people are more connected than ever, they're very lonely and very empty.
Mm.
But when you connect to a cast or a blog or, even I think Pastor Bill Alderson, he's like a machine right now with his blogs. Like we're actually writing for different ministries because, quote, we've never heard this in our lives.
Wow.
Quote.
Yes.
Like leaders are like, this message is that precious and that rare, as you know. So, maybe we don't have a lot of time, but to do this in our busy schedules, but you can also reach out to a younger person and commission them, and it's amazing the little that can be done and with great impact. I'll just say this one last thing. We have what's called the Readiness Prayer Group, and we had a need in our church where there's a young girl, 10 years old, that was struggling with COVID. And on our Readiness Prayer Group, there's 40 people. We work with Fed Hill, and there's a network of 40 people. So we can send out a prayer request, broadcast text to 40 people in just a click of a button. And there's instant prayer. And we saw in 2 days, honest to God, this is incredible. The organs were swelling, they were getting ready to intubate her. It was not good. This 10-year-old was going to pass. It was evident. Within 2 days, she was discharged. Totally fine. Totally fine. So I think there's a silver lining with technology to get the word out, to get corporate unity and as far as prayer and investment. So little can be done with great impact. And it's a great way to engage the youth in our church.
And keep going here.
You could, but no, that's good. Thank you. So maybe I'm thinking, okay, some of the people who are still hibernating because of COVID, Maybe they will come back. Okay. But I like what Pastor Chris, was saying that we need to engage people where they are at. And like it or not, COVID has kind of put people in front of the screen who never would have thought themselves to want to be in front of a screen. Okay. And that's not going to change anytime soon. In fact, more people have probably got acclimated and oriented that way than ever before. It got fast forwarded. So we're just saying, let's think of this as an ingredient to our church ministry. So you put your services online, that's great, and that's where they need to be, as well as having in-person services. How about a little 10-minute, and brevity is what matters really in that universe. If you can make your point in 5 minutes and you're one and done, that's great. Don't have to be lengthy. People are not going to stay on for 35 or 40. Sometimes, I mean, they'll stay on for a service because they like the whole presentation. But if they're looking for something, if they're looking for a word, it's going to happen in the first 10 minutes, and that's all they need. And then they'll come back, and that's the important thing. Will these individuals ever be in our church? That's not the objective. The objective is the clarity of what Jesus Christ has done through the finished work. What we have been given, a legacy that began with cassettes, continues. It continues. And I just thought, Lord, I needed to get stirred up in this. Yeah, there's foibles, there's fun things that happen, there's stupid things that happen digitally, and technically. But in the final analysis, I think, God he's given us the message. The means are present. Now it's just a matter of the men or the ladies or the individuals, whatever it is, you've got something to say. So I wanted to, I don't have this to put up on the screen, or do I? Let's see, maybe I do. I wanted to, no, I don't have this to put up on the screen. Okay, let's do this. You have a phone. Of course you do. I want you to take out your phone right now. And, oh, I can use the whiteboard. Yes, I can. Okay. This is old technology buttressing new technology. Okay. Take out your phone, please. Thank you. To this number, 77411. I call it the finished work information, please. Okay. So you're going to this number, text THNX. Looks like, but it sounds like thanks. And one of the things that we were kind of thinking of doing was they're in this room and beyond this room, there are people who are gifted, writers, speakers, thought, if you never thought that what you had to say had any impact, I know that it does. I know that it does. And we were talking about the need for cross-pollination, if we want to call it, okay? Pastor Jason has a platform, others have platforms. We would love it, that we could get your portion and put it on the platform for others to see. We're not interested in necessarily reproducing the wheel, but if you're doing a little 5-minute video clip, we want to have it, we want to bring it. Yes.
I think some people are having trouble understanding how to text directly to that number and then the word. Could we explain that to the people in the room?
Sure. So you go to your text page, okay? You go to where you go make a text, okay? And you are going to type this word, this number goes up at the top. Yes, there we go. That's the sending information. Anyone else have a? No, no, God forbid, pastors.
Where's the dial?
It's in my shoe, you know. They yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, no quotes. Go ahead.
Yeah, there used to be a lady in this church.
Oh,
There used
okay.
to be a lady in this church named Erica Fierro, and she had a job. She had a job with the government, and she used to bring a BlackBerry phone to different departments of the government, especially intelligence groups. And she used to give the agents a lesson on how to use their phone.
Hmm.
And there was 100% attendance all the time. And she was surrounded by handsome young agents, and she liked that, of course. But a lot of those guys, they found out in those classes that a lot of those agents didn't know how to use their phones at all because they had never been taught.
Hmm.
And that was her job. She was paid by the BlackBerry people to do those classes. And she attended here, and she attended my church up in Boston as well. I would think that a pastor's conference it wouldn't be a waste of time for guys who wanted it
Right.
to have a class or a class like the thing in October. If someone was there that was competent and also had some information of the stuff he's going to cover, that he can take home, because a lot of guys are. I was the first IT director in this church. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
I remember
When something
satellite
happens-
radio.
Yeah. I remember when something would happen, I would be shocked that it worked.
Yeah.
When Paul Knight came and he swung by my desk, and he's a genius.
Yes.
And at that time, we had Neil, that fellow who was mostly deaf, who was an ace, but it was hard for him to talk to people because he was deaf. And Paul came and he said, I want to help you. And I said, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. And the kicker for this is the one who put us on the internet was Dr. Stevens.
Hmm.
He rebuked the whole staff for calling the internet demonic because he said, we can't be lazy. We are a pioneer ministry. We have never stopped pioneering. He said, this is an opportunity. I don't understand anything about this. He said, I don't know anything about this. But if it's a chance to pioneer and reach people around the world, we're going to do it. And you better not bring it up again in a negative way. He didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
You know, all he used to drive up to his house and set him up. You know?
Yeah.
But
But you're saying exactly what beautiful, because the purpose of you texting to that number is that now I don't have to, hand out paper and have you fill out a form and hand that piece of paper back and I can't read your legibility. So you have just, we've gathered some contact information, all right? So that if you are interested and you'd like to learn and we can do some training, we can communicate. Best of all, we can like we said, cross pollinate. There, like I said, there's some writers in here. I don't write, I'm just a verbal guy, okay? But some of you do, okay? Um, Pastor Sleeve is like amazing, okay? And he writes for, our website. So there's that reality and that possibility, but you're kind of hidden, latent, you're on your own. You're thinking that you're on your own, but you're not. So Pastor Jason and I will get back in touch with you, and you can be in touch with us as we could all kind of catch a fresh vision, because remember, it's godliness with contentment. Godliness. See, thank God we've got Jesus Christ. All right, He's the content of our soul, and that is what we want to communicate to others. Okay, any questions or any thoughts that you have? Yes.
How do you find someone's flaws?
Great question. You have to get with them if you know them personally, okay? Because he's got an address, and that can happen. That definitely can happen. Yeah, go ahead. Thanks.
I don't know if I'm still on here, but hi, John. Just to say hi, John, to the source for the one you guys. Our website, we have a Canada for our website. Paul, and I, and Sebastian, Incredible, and others, but you can go on there's like tabs on our website.